Here's our main skid road at the north end of the reservoir. We've got our bridge in place now, and you can see we're skidding wood over it. We've laid some wood on either side of the bridge as a guardrail to keep the trees that we skid up in the air and keep them from dragging on the ground, and to protect the water line pipe that's under here. We've also got some caution tape strung up between the trees because this is an active snowmobile area. We want to make sure people know this is in place, particularly if they're coming through here at night when it might be hard to see. The bridge is pretty simple. A couple of big I-beams set at the wheel width of the skidder and the shear, and in fact you can see the tracks on the track marks on the bridge now where the shear just made its way out late Friday afternoon here. I'll zoom out. Here's our main skid road going up around the corner in south down along the east side of the reservoir. Looking south down the main skid road here. On the low side of the skid road you can see we cut one tree up high. That's a bumper that keeps the trees from sliding downhill as they're being skidded down the road here, and it protects anything on the downhill side. This wood's exceptionally tall, so we have to make sure we have roads as straight as possible, and that the any corners we have are gradual. We can't drag this wood around too sharp a corner, otherwise it'll break on us. Here we are looking from the north end of the reservoir south to the dam. We will be removing a lot of the softwood right along the margin of the reservoir. These trees have a habit of tipping over and falling in the reservoir, and that creates problems for the water department. So we're going to try to correct that by cutting the trees back that are right along the edge of the reservoir. We're at the Rice Reservoir in Claremont, New Hampshire. This is property owned by the City of Claremont. This is one of their municipal water supplies, and we're looking at the early phases of a timber harvest. It's occurring here. It's a combination of a selective thinning, which you can see straight ahead, the north end of the reservoir. You can see some of the bundles on the ground, and then the area to the west we're clear cutting for two reasons. Department of Environmental Services down in Concord wants the city to take these trees that are on the toe of the slope on the dike and the dam off for safety reasons, and beyond that we've got a very stagnant stand of white pine with a lot of mortality and a chronic wind throw problem. So with the blessing of the Department of Resources and Economic Development, Division of Forests and Lands, we're going to clear cut this area. The city's Conservation Commission is in concurrence with this too. My name is Dennis McKenney. I'm the consulting forester hired by the city to handle this and other timber sales in accordance with their forest management plan that was approved and adopted several years ago. Right ahead of us we've got the landing area where eventually we'll set up a chipper and a slasher to process the logs or the trees into saw logs, into pulp, and into whole tree chips to be burned at bioenergy plants. Hopkinton Forestry from Henniker was the high bidder on this timber sale. They were one of several bids, and the idea is to time this weather, or to time the sale to coincide with cold weather, and that's certainly the case here today. This is probably one of the coldest days we'll have this winter. So we'll take a look at other aspects of the sale here, the marking strategy, the boundary lines, the bridge crossing that we're getting ready. Much of this timber sale will cross the 10-inch, 100-year-old cast iron water main that's the main water supply to the City of Claremont, which is, I guess some 12,000 plus people that rely on this. This area on the east side of the reservoir is a dense stand of white pine. We'll be thinning that out as well. and all that wood will swing around to the north end of the reservoir, cross over our bridge, which will be in this area here, and then come down the east side of the reservoir through the area that's presently being cut, and then it'll be processed down where you see the truck and trailer park. We're on the east side of the reservoir now. This tree with the X on it has been tallied as a cut tree. It's a white pine. It's been tallied and as a saw timber tree. This will be cut. The black seam on the or the blackness on the side of the tree at the seam indicates there's some defect inside. That's one of the reasons to cut it. And then beyond it you can see there's a white pine with a slash on it, just a single mark. That tree will be kept for future harvest. And then as we swing around to the north, there's another pine with an X on it. That'll be kept for future harvest. Dead snag beyond, that's a wildlife snag. Any trees with obvious or potential wildlife value in here have been marked with a W. We'll save those for wildlife use, and if I happen to come across those, I'll try to take a video of that as well. Next we'll look at the main skid road, which I flagged out the other day in blue tape. That'll be the main road that the tree shear will follow to access the stand, and the skidders will follow that road to drag the wood out. I use blue flags to mark out our main skid road, and in the immediate foreground here there's enough of a drainage that we'll put a little pole ford in here. As we come through, we'll cut some hardwood poles 16 to 20 feet long, throw them in the stream channel, so if we get any runoff it'll run underneath those poles, and then the skidder will drag the wood over the top, and it just helps us keep the water nice and clean, which of course is important on every job, but even more so because this is a water supply. We're at the northeast corner of the Rice Reservoir tract. This granite bound was set in 1923, and it marks the northeast corner of a tract of land that the city bought from Mr. and Mrs. Lewis for water supply purposes. I painted the top of the bound red last summer when we were doing this boundary work. As I said, we've done about 10 miles of work so far on the city land. A little ways away there's a triple blazed witness tree that marks the serves to witness the location of the corner. There's also another one over here behind this brush. 3 blazes are a typical way to witness trees, and blazed and painted trees are the traditional way that woodland boundaries have been marked in New England and other wooded areas for centuries now. Next we'll look at the bridge crossing that's got to go in for the main skid road where we cross over the city's 10-inch water main. Before we get to the blowdown, here's another shot of triple blazed pine witness tree, and at the base of that hardwood stake with the 3 pink flags is a granite bound, and it shows you why we use witness trees, because when the snow gets deep and you got to look for one, it at least narrows the spot down where you have to look. In the background you can see an area on the Rice Reservoir that we've thinned out. We've left the good vigorous white pine, cut the mature trees or the overtopped ones, and way out in the distance, I'll zoom in, you can see how we bundle the trees up. Those will be taken by grapple skidder and dragged down to the chipper where the logs will be cut out, the pulp will be cut out, and the tops will be chipped. Looking down the boundary line here, you can see some of the side blazes. There's a stone wall under here, under the snow, historic boundary between the old Lewis property and what's now the City of Claremont land.